Hey everybody, welcome to the Mystics of Texas. Today we're doing something a little different than normal. We're going to talk about the history of Easter, the whole Easter tradition and how it came to be. And I just think it's awesome. We typically don't do this part of our presentation. I don't video it typically because it's kind of private with the people that are here. But in this case, I would like everybody that's watching, that y'all are thinking about coming out and you want to come out, you keep watching our videos and you give me all these wonderful comments. This is really how we start after we have like group conversation and fellowship and all these things, other things we do. So we start with 3 deep breaths. It kind of helps us all get synced together and helps us, our energies flowing. So I invite you at home, take 3 deep breaths with me before we get started and hang around. It's a really cool presentation if you don't know the history of Easter. So here we go. 1, 2, 3. All right. Thank y'all very much. And I wanted to ask everybody right before we start, I would like for us to take a couple of moments of silence. We typically do this every Sunday as well. But I know that there's a lot of people in this world that we're struggling in our health. We're struggling financially. We're struggling emotionally. We got all these outside and inside pressures on us. And I'm a big proponent of prayer and meditation, and I believe it works. I believe it helps. I think it's important. I've seen it in my own life. I've seen it with many other people that focus on certain things in their meditation or their prayer, no matter what religion, no matter if you don't have a religion. I believe that those energies go into the universe and actually make a positive difference. I think it's important. So I would ask that everybody that knows somebody who is struggling or has a little wish for somebody, we just take a few seconds to do that in silence. So let's go. All right, thank y'all. I appreciate y'all doing that and your patience at home. And so here we go. This is going to be a fun one. So how did we arrive at Easter? This tradition is pretty cool that most people don't know. And Easter, in case y'all don't know, it's the spring equinox. It is the period, it's had a lot of long traditions for many thousands of years, way before our current understanding of what Easter is. For me, when I was a kid, I loved Easter because we got candies and we would all play and hide eggs and we'd get to paint them and we just had a blast with Easter. I really never knew what it was. You know, I'd go to the church or whatever, and I still didn't know as a kid. I was just like, oh, it's time to go get some eggs and paint and have fun. And I think that's probably what most kids still think of Easter today. But farmers worldwide, since the beginning of recorded history, have used this specific period of time to plant. It is the time to plant. It is the time to use the divine blueprint of the universe to showcase it and celebrate it. And in different cultures and religions for thousands of years, it is, and way before Jesus, it was regarded as death coming into life. So it was a rebirth. And I just think that is a wonderful thing that we should be more aware of because we're so disconnected from the earth, from where we get our food, from just our natural cycles of life. But for thousands of years, it has been the celebration of new birth. And until the Romans changed the calendar about 2,000 years ago, which is fascinating, but the Christians, and most Christian nations, they celebrate it as the death and resurrection, which, if you just barely think about it, it is death turning into life. That is just what has happened. And it's pretty cool because we all see winter, everything's dead. It's just dead. And now you drive, that super nice drive out here. It's relaxing. Well, you see everything's coming to life. The birds are chirping. Everything's springing forth. And it's a massive importance, because without this springing into life, we don't have any food. We don't have the enjoyment of the warmth. We don't get to notice the thing. I think it's pretty cool because we are so detached. That winter, as we're spinning around, we are springing forth into life. And what marks this time of year is the spring equinox. It is when the sun is passing over the equator and we have an equal day. We have an equal day of, there's just as much light as there is darkness. And that happens twice a year. It's in late March and it's in early September. And that is where all of these myths and what many believe are true, where they come from, and all these spiritual, I say spiritual, well, there are a lot of spiritual aspects to it, but it is a rebirth. And we're going to just have fun with this. And I don't know about y'all, but I love seeing the flowers come up. And it kind of hurts my feelings whenever I have to go cut grass and there's a bunch of pretty flowers and I have to mow them down. I'm like, damn, I'm going to cut these. But if you don't, then you got all the nasty high grass everywhere. And it just doesn't look right. So there's nothing you can do about it. But I just love it. But the way we understand spring has been brought down from many traditions worldwide, and it came from the way we know Easter started with Cleopatra and the Romans. She brought her astrologers and mathematicians, and she gave Julius Caesar the bright idea that he needed to change the calendar. And this was in 45 BC. So 45 years before Jesus, and it was pretty cool. And then not too long after that, we had, I'll say not too long, 1,500 years later, Pope Gregory changed the calendar from how Julius did. He tweaked it and he added 67 days and changed the leap year a little bit. So that's how we know the calendar. And it's pretty interesting because the calendar used to be, this time of year was the first of the year. So this was the rebirth of the year, along with all of the rebirthing of the plants, rebirthing of the Mother Nature. So this was the beginning of the year. Most people don't know that. I just threw this in here because I just thought it was really cool. How did we get all the names of these months? January was named after the Roman goddess or god of doors and beginnings. And it was created by King Populus in 690. So basically 700 years before Jesus. February was the god of death and purification, which is really cool because it was a month-long sacrifice. So what you did in January and February, everybody stopped going to war. There was no war. You had to pray and atone and give sacrifices and all these things for that period, which I think is pretty interesting. And why would any sort of empirical government or religion try to really force that idea? Well, it's hard to fight in the winter. It's really hard. It's really hard to go kill a bunch of people. You don't want to kill all your guys in winter. You want them to survive. So when it's springing into new life, the powers that be can just go make it easier for them to kill. It's pretty weird. But March was named after Mars, the god of war. And it was the god of war that brought in the beginnings, the foundations of the new year. And then this is really hotly debated. We don't know where April comes from. Some people think it was Latin for the second month because that was the second month of the year at that time, or it came from beauty and openness, or the Aphrodite, the goddess of love. Nobody knows. And May was the goddess of Maya. She was the guardian of nature and growing plants, which is really cool. So we have all of these traditions that we don't even know, and that we use them every day of our lives and have forever, and we don't even know where they came from. And so every Christian, every Buddhist, everybody is using the old pagan forms of marking time, which is really pretty interesting. And June, which I think is great, because I think this should be the name of every month, is Juno. It's the marriage of love and marriage. Like, that's what it's, he's the God of love and marriage, which I think is great. Thanks, Jill. July was named after Julius Caesar because he created this whole new calendar as we know it, and that was his birthday month. So July is named after Julius Caesar, if you didn't know that. And August was his successor, the one right after him, his nephew. So he was Augustus Caesar. And then all the rest of them, they didn't do anything with them. These were old numbers. The September was number 7, October 8, November 9, and they're totally out of order now. They were the 7th, 8th, and 9th, months, but now they're way out of order, and they didn't care. I just think, my personal opinion is, Caesar just didn't want anybody else to compete with him, and the people were already used to those months anyway, so he just left them alone. Why change them? I'm not going to add any more gods that I don't agree with, and I'm not going to add any more other people in there to compete with me and my legacy, so I'm just going to leave it alone. And that's what he did. So it's pretty cool. Totally out of order, which is really funny. All right, so Easter. This is where we start to know Easter. The church didn't know how to celebrate it. They really didn't. It was such a big mess of different pagan religions, all worshiping death to life. And so they just debated these, Christian infighting. I mean, we wouldn't have 40,000 different Christian denominations if there weren't some infighting. So in the Council of Nicaea in 325, they decided to have it after the Jewish Passover, which is the Sunday after the full moon. That is why we have Easter on this date now, which is pretty interesting. I just think it's cool how, these guys can sit around and, this hot Cleopatra says, hey, I think you need to change the calendar. I mean, what do guys do for women? This is crazy. But, it might make some sense. I don't know. But, so as I said a little while ago, it's 45 BC is when it changed. Pope Gregory in 1585 changed it some. And then the Christians really adopted the spring equinox as the celebration of Jesus. And there are some people that still use those old calendars so they can better mark, there wasn't a set date. It was this particular astrological thing. So a lot of people still use the old calendars. And the name Easter is really cool because there was no word for it in early Christianity. They just started practicing it, and they didn't really have a word. So they adopted what was already there. And it was this term called Pascha. It was a Greek term for the Hebrew word Pasash, meaning Passover. And everybody knows what the Passover is, right? You put your blood on the door and you hope the angel of death doesn't come by and kill you. So when they started doing that, it was the festival that me and Dean were talking about a little while ago, of Asteria. I don't know if that's how you pronounce it or not, but the Christians wanted to name it one of the big celebrations already because it was easier for them to start converting Christians because they didn't have to change their way of life and the festivals they already celebrated. Nothing was really foreign to them. So it was a lot easier and a higher conversion rate for them to do that. And it was pretty smart, actually. So that's what they did. And Easter is believed to come from the Anglo-Saxon goddess, primarily started in Germany, and I don't know how to pronounce that either. It's this word right here, that one. And that's where we got the name Easter, which is pretty cool to me too. All right, so this was fun. This is fun doing research into this because where did the bunny rabbit come from? I always love bunny rabbits on Easter. I just thought they were great. One time, my stepdad bought me and my brothers and sisters some little bunny rabbits for Easter, and we thought it was the best thing ever until we accidentally let them go and we couldn't catch them. But it was great. And so the rabbit was inspired by the pagan goddess, Ostrip, however you say it, and it was a symbol of fertility, of life. I mean, we've all heard the sexual innuendos and the jokes of rabbits. You know, I mean, that's where it comes from. But then what about the Easter eggs? I loved Easter eggs when I was a kid. I still love them now. I think Easter eggs are great. But for Christians, whoever knew this, the egg itself symbolized the tomb of Jesus. So the egg was like the tomb. And cracking the egg meant his resurrection. And painting the eggs, they mainly in the beginning painted them red to symbolize the blood, which I thought was pretty interesting. And then if you take it back before then, there was a huge symbolism in eggs in the ancient world where it signified the roundness, things never ending. It was the promise of a full life. That is what the egg was, a promise of a full, endless energy in life. And that's why we use the Easter egg now in our celebrations, which, if y'all didn't know that, y'all know now, and it's pretty cool. But how about painting the eggs? We used to paint, man, I love painting on eggs when I was a kid. If I had one right now, I'd probably enjoy painting on it right now. But it was an act of prayer. So you wrote and drew on your Easter egg as a form of prayer and worship to your ancient deity, whoever that might have been, another thing I thought was really cool. Now, the Romans had some pretty wild parties. I don't know if you know anything about Roman history, but they had some debauchery going on. I mean, what's that old saying? Nothing worse than a reformed whore. You know, and that's kind of like the Romans. They were bad. But when you go back, way back then, this Ishtar, the Sumerian goddess of Mesopotamia, her counterpart was Aphrodite and Venus. And these go back to cuneiform tablets where they're celebrating this festival of new life. And this is like 6,000 years ago. And we just continue to adopt it and evolve it and change it to, whatever pleases people. And these goddesses represent love, sex, fertility, and rebirth. And naturally they do, because it's spring. It's the spring equinox. We're going into the life force of the remaining of the year. It's pretty cool. But they had these temple rituals, the Temple of Saturn, where they had these huge festivals. And the masters would become the slave for that day. That the slaves would get served by the masters. And they would do all sorts of debauchery. It was just a debauchery. You just go look this up if y'all have an interest, because it's pretty fascinating. The ancient celebrations of the Romans for this time of year. But they all focused on rebirth. Rebirth. And what about the candy? That is a new thing. The candy started in the 1800s as all these mom and pop stores started promoting and pushing candy. It's like, Dean and Andrew, they're chefs back here, they know how to cook well. And they're like, hey, we probably make some extra money if we made our chocolate look like a little bunny rabbit. And then, slowly but surely it took off. And so for about 200 years, we've been eating chocolate thanks to some mom and pop confectioners that learned how to do that. And then we get to the consumers, we're in consumerism. So now nobody even knows why they eat chocolate bunnies for Easter. They just eat them. Let's poison our family with this crap. It's crazy. And this is what the kids know about it today. I mean, this is Easter for most kids. They walk down the aisle and go, Mom, give me some of this. And of course, most parents do, which goes into another whole topic of obesity and total abuse of children, making them stupid and fat, which is horrible. So how about the Easter egg hunt? I thought this was very fascinating. Martin Luther started this in the 16th century because it represented he wanted his congregation to go find the eggs because it representing resurrection, bringing Jesus out from hiding and letting him be seen. And the rolling of the eggs, I never did that as a kid, probably because we'd have broke them all, but rolling the eggs was symbolizing the rolling of Jesus' tomb. Rolling the big rock. So that's why people roll eggs for Easter. It symbolizes the big rock being rolled. It's pretty cool. But no matter what your religious beliefs, it is spring equinox. It's the time to celebrate the rebirth of life. So no matter if you're any religion, this is the time to celebrate life. This is the time that we can have picnics. We can sit out and meditate with each other. We can make new friendships. We can enjoy each other in comfort. And like next week, we are doing the orchard pruning next week. So especially I'm mentioning this late because if you're with me through this far, that means you are more prone to come out in person if you're local. Our orchard is available to everyone that comes, helps us give the trees a haircut so they can make more fruit, and everybody that participates when it's time to harvest can get apples, peaches, pears, all that. And it's all free. And we have a big shindig and have a great time. And that was a little bit different Sunday with a history of Easter, which was scratching the surface, but nonetheless, it was still pretty cool for me to discover some of those things. And if you like our channel and you like what we're doing, I mean, our numbers are growing like crazy, so I really appreciate it. But we talk about a whole host of things here, primarily how to know ourselves better, how to deal with our emotions, how to deal with everything about our life, and to connect with other people better. Like, we lived in such a big disconnecting world. People in big cities feel alone. People that are out alone, they feel alone. You know, everybody just has this non-connective thing. And we're trying the best we can here to connect each other, no matter what your race, no matter what your belief system. Like, we all have way more in common than we have apart. And that's just a fact. And in doing that, I believe it helps us to connect with the energies of Earth, the energies of the cosmos, and some people call that God. I like to call it infinite intelligence because nobody knows exactly what that is. And I love y'all. I'm glad y'all are here. Thank y'all for coming. And now we're going to go eat. So if you were here, you would be able to eat some of Andrew's really great food. That's it.